Now, what responsibility do AI companies like OpenAI have when their systems flag potentially violent or dangerous content?
So it's going to depend company to company. In Canada, we do not yet have an established rule of law on this. There have been attempts at codifying this and figuring out what the rules should be. But right now, all of that is governed by the individual company's terms of service. And you can see that across any of the different chatbot companies, artificial intelligence companies, search, whatever it might be. We can see that they have individual policies. Of course, there are different stipulations when it comes to illegal CSAM material or things that are imminently dangerous. And that's where I think the line is a bit fuzzy because we're talking about obligations on private companies to provide things to the police or to the government. And in most Western parliamentary systems, we do have a lot of protections for private individuals when it comes to data that's given to police. So I think that creates the big distinction that people in Ottawa will be discussing throughout the week and is putting the spotlight, I think unjustly right now, on many of these AI companies.
Well, in this case, the account was reportedly banned over troubling posts. Should that automatically trigger a report to law enforcement, or do you agree with OpenAI's stance that they didn't really think it was much of a problem?
Yeah, I think you're going to have a million different reasons that accounts would be banned. Whether it be people trying to deceive and put different prompts in there to create tools that might do something bad. Does everything arise to a level that we need to get the police involved? Probably not. Just like many people have their accounts shut down every single day, and that doesn't mean that we need to invite the police. I think in this particular circumstance, what's important to understand and realize is that it wasn't just some of the tech companies or even the chatbots that had issues with this. You had, in this particular case, the police were involved. You had various mental health professionals. So this person had been involved in the system or had had interactions with officials from the system for a long time. I think right now with the technology companies, Canada still does not yet have a standard. I think there has to be perhaps some rethink as to how actually we craft that. But we have to be very careful because a lot of times, many of these certain circumstances or things that could be flagged would really just end up putting people like you and me on some kind of list or having our own services banned.
And where should the line be drawn between user privacy and public safety?
It's a good question and one that we're probably battling with in every single Western liberal democracy, and we're still trying to figure out, especially with novel technologies, because we have a lot of these chatbots where we're able to get instantaneous information, we're able to generate new code. I have my agentic AI putting together all kinds of reports for me and research. I think right now, the way that we've always had it is when it comes to imminent danger, harm, violence, and active harm of an individual. This has really been the case, and we can look towards Google for an example. Google maintains a very transparent database of every time that they have offered information to police and law enforcement, and also times that they've been asked for information. So if we're talking about a new duty of care, that is something that would really require new legislation because we don't have that in Canada. But it would mean that a lot of these other circumstances where we're using these technologies might get flagged. So it's very difficult to say, but I think imminent harm, imminent violence, something that many of these companies could probably log into their own algorithms, that probably does meet the test and probably something to look at.
Well, yesterday, Premier David Eby came out and said that there needs to be safeguards in place for ChatGPT and OpenAI and any AI software. So, in your opinion, what kind of safeguards would be reasonable or realistic for AI platforms to implement without overdoing it?
Yeah, I'm of two minds of this because I look at the positive nature of technology and everything that most of the AI companies are now offering us, including open source models that people can run at home completely free, where anything they type into that chatbot will not be relayed to people who are at these companies, nor will it be relayed to the police or law enforcement or anyone. And I think this is the kind of pharmaceutic point, is that we have great things with technology and then also the bad. And we have to figure out what that line is and exactly how our public officials play into it. It's going to be difficult to understand how different provinces are going to do it, or even at the national level. I fear that right now, where the Liberal government might go is to the Online Harms Act, which was introduced last Parliament and tried to introduce a new duty of care that, tried to elevate cyberbullying and different things online really to federal crimes. And there's a lot there that I believe could be very dangerous for internet freedom in Canada. So I fear that right now is the only solution. that members of the government have. I would like to see more tech forward proposals. I'd like to see the use of different technologies to flag this stuff. Just involving the legal system when it comes to every small thing is probably something that's not prudent to do right now.
Well, and could government intervention in situations like this risk overreach or unintended consequences for innovation and free speech?
It absolutely could, and you just have to think about, someone who might be a victim of domestic violence, who's asking a chatbot about certain things or trying to get information. There might be a certain threshold or limit of that content that does get flagged, and they're the ones under scrutiny, or they have, their account suspended. So I think we also have to think about the traditional institutions that we already have in place. When we're talking about this shooting, we had the family involved, we had the schools involved, we had the police involved on multiple interventions. So we're talking about different strata and institutions in society that actually did fail this person, which is very unfortunate. And we have to look at to how we can have a wholesome approach, because the traditional way of doing it has failed. Does it mean that the novel technology is necessarily the evil big bad monster, or is it actually the solution to better flag this next time? I think that's an important question to ask. And I think there are plenty of innovators and entrepreneurs who are probably coming up with better solutions that we can think of right now for the next time this might happen.
Now, to go back to David Eby, he did also say that this could have been prevented had OpenAI ChatGPT actually said something and reported this to the RCMP. Do you agree that some onus should be put on OpenAI, or do you not think that it's necessarily their problem?
Well, considering that this was brought up by various managers there and they did discuss it, that is something that does fall on the company, and they will have to answer for exactly why they did or did not make a decision, because that is something that really goes to the heart of a company, to their own ethical and moral obligations. Again, I'm not to say that anything should be illegal for now, because we don't necessarily have those laws in Canada, but I think internally, the companies have to really figure out how they're going to deal with these kind of scenarios in the future and probably come up with better systems. They were obviously able to flag it, but the issue seems that the human managers were the problem. So again, it's not the technology that failed, it's the human managers of that technology. So that is something that we're just always going to have to contend with, and something that even if we have the best technology, we're not going to be able to solve tomorrow.
Well, Yael, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.